Hey, hi, and hello, Angelisa here, your host for Brat Babes Throttle Talk, and today I am sitting down with you to talk about how we can set up our snowmobiles so that they are easier to ride and a little bit more enjoyable to venture out in the backcountry. Before I begin, just a bit of housekeeping things. If you live in Squamish, Whistler, or Pemberton, or heck, if you're living in Vancouver and you want to make the trip up north, I am hosting a women's only snowmobile setup evening, which is happening Thursday, November 28th from 6 to 8 p.m. at Backcountry Motorsports in Pemberton, BC. I will leave the address in the show notes. Sorry for those men out there. This is a women's only sled setup, and particularly because I am a very picky sledder when it comes to my sled setup. I don't think I've hosted, this is wild, I don't think I've hosted a sled setup in 5 years. Yep, how wild is that? It's been 5 years, I think 2019. Yeah, it has to be 2019. I was trying to think of it. I thought 2020, but no, 2019 would have been the last year. I hosted many sled setups. If you were following my Instagram business account, it is bratbabes_official. I no longer run that account right now. Just because there's so much, like I couldn't handle running a ton of accounts. So that's why I keep everything in one area, which is my personal page now, Angelisa Edwards. But if you were following Brat Babes at the time, I hosted so many sled meetups, these sled setup meetups, and throughout, Vancouver, Squamish, Whistler, and Pemberton. So here we go. I am so excited to be bringing back this snowmobile setup, and we're doing it November 28th. And this is for women who want to learn more about their sled, who want to learn a little bit more about products, accessories, aftermarket parts that you can add onto your snowmobile to make it easier to handle and maneuver when you are sledding. As you all know, I swear I say this every single time that I talk about sledding, but sledding has got to be the hardest sport out there for anyone. Even if you're male or female, like it's a hard sport. It's physically demanding. And if you lack in height, vertically challenged like me, shy of 5 feet, it can be a real struggle, and it just takes a longer time. It's a longer learning curve, I should say, for us shorties. So my good friends Steph Sweezy and Jessie Pois will be there along with myself, and this is a great opportunity to ask questions. Steph and Jessie are really knowledgeable when it comes to sledding and also their snowmobiles, and I feel like I have really tested and tried every single product out there that I can really give you an honest opinion on what I think works best for a shorter rider. Snowmobiles have come a long way over the years, but I do believe that modifying your snowmobile to you can either make or break your experience. These products and aftermarket accessories, I feel like, have only become a little bit more popular over the past 6 to 7 years, because there has been a huge influx of women riders. And not only that, but men are wanting different sled setups, different products and accessories to enhance their riding abilities. And let's think about it for a moment. If you are a skier or a snowboarder, maybe a skateboarder or a mountain biker, I'm trying to think of any other sport, typically you are going to customize your snowboard to the type of riding that you're going to do. You customize your mountain bike to the type of riding that you do. I feel like in all of these sports, there's always something that we're doing to make our riding experience a little bit better. to make it easier for us. It just made sense to me. It made sense to customize these big machines to make it fit for me. Anyways, this is a huge subject for me that I can talk about for a very long time. And because I am hosting a women's snowmobile setup night, I thought I would chat with you about what you can do to make your sled experience a little bit more enjoyable. Over the last 5 years running this podcast, I have interviewed some pretty incredible women, and the one question that I always ask them is what they've done to modify their ride. And again, I just think it's extremely important, and I love hearing what other women are doing because I think, oh, I wonder if that would work for me. Before we dive in, I do have some resources for you. I've created a ton of YouTube videos about all of the products and accessories that I have installed and tested. So if you want more in-depth video, I will add links in the show notes. There's quite a few of them, so I might forget. You just might have to go over to my YouTube channel and just go through all of my videos. There's tons. But yeah, I've installed a ton of stuff onto my snowmobile. And I think my very first video was about my seat because that blew me away in 2018. 2018 is when I started that YouTube channel. Anyways, you can check that out. I have tons of resources on all of these products, especially for shorter riders. Okay, now let's get into it. So before you start your research, ask yourself, what type of riding will you perform? Is it trail riding? Do you live in the mountains and want to ride backcountry? Is your area flat terrain? Do you ride in the flats? Do you ride in ditches? Do you ride in small areas? Do you get a ton of snow? Or do you get little snow? What are your seasons like? Ask yourself these questions because these details will help you determine what type of products you might need to make sledding easier for you. And because a lot of you are big mountain backcountry sledders, I'm going to focus more on backcountry setup. There is different setups for trail riding and flat riding, prairie riding, that sort of thing. So we're going to really focus just on big mountain backcountry sledding, okay? And maybe some of these tips will help or can cross over onto the trail riders as well. So be open-minded. There's a ton that we're going to go through together, and I'm really, really excited about this, okay? I'm going to give you my personal experience when it comes to these tips because I am a very picky rider. I know I said that, but I am, and a lot of people know it too. It's pretty funny. Okay, so tip number 1 is a heavy duty bumper. Okay, this is an aftermarket piece. It does not come stock on your snowmobile, but this is something that all of us riders should invest in, and perhaps maybe even trail riders too. So this might not make your riding easier, okay, but what it will do is it will save you lots of money when you do smoke those trees, when you hit trees, when they pop out of nowhere. Let's face it, we've all been there, we've all done it, and a heavy duty bumper will save you in the long run. So during my women's Grizzly Lodge trip, this was a few years ago, I was riding in a very technical area, side hilling, and I just couldn't keep or hold on to my side hill, and my sled bucked me off, and my sled just went straight, like so fast down the mountain, and smoked probably the biggest tree in the area. The tree shook, and I thought I totaled my sled. After recovering my sled, pulling it out of the tree well, there is a video about this also. You can see it. I'll link it up here if you're watching on YouTube. Anyways, because of my heavy duty bumper, it took a lot of the impact. If I didn't have that heavy duty bumper on there, my sled would have been totaled and I would have needed to get a helicopter to recover it. Actually, the guides at Grizzly Lodge thought I would have to do that. But because of this heavy duty bumper, it saved everything. My plastics did get a little warped and bent, but everything, like I could still ride home, which I'm very, very grateful for. Oh my gosh, that could have ended really bad. Go check out that video because I also had the 360 GoPro camera on there, and you can see the sled picked up speed and just, it hit that tree. Not proud of it. That's not a proud moment, but holy moly, a true testament to heavy duty bumpers, and I swear by them. Okay, tip number 1. I promise I won't drag out these. I'm going to try to go as fast as possible because there's a lot we got to talk about. Tip number 2 is risers. What is a riser, you might be asking? It's the part on your snowmobile where it raises the height of your handlebars from the top of your sled to, the handlebars basically. So it's that in-between section. So this has got to be the most important part on your sled that you want to pay attention to, that and the heavy duty bumper. This was the biggest game changer for me. So back in 2013, my skidoo riser was 10 inches tall. Okay, could you imagine, for those of you that are familiar with sleds, could you imagine a short, under 5 feet woman riding a sled with 10 inches of handlebar height? I looked like a little kid. The handlebars were pretty much at my shoulders, right? So it wasn't until I was introduced or made aware that you could change out your risers. And so instantly, when I changed out those risers, I noticed the biggest difference in my riding. I believe I started off with a 4-inch riser, then I got a 3-inch, and then I dropped all the way to the shortest riser, which is a 1.25-inch rise. Nowadays, most snowmobiles, their stock risers are around 6 inches, I believe. Don't quote me on that. But it's because companies are realizing that 10-inch risers are made for giants. We're not giants here. There's a few of them, but not everyone. And then the Polaris, if you snow check a Polaris, you can now customize your rise to a tall, medium, and short. But for me, again, when I snow checked my machine, the small riser was still too tall for me. So that is when I went to Cheetah Factory Racing. Lucky me, they are located here in Pemberton, BC. And that's when we tested out the 1.25-inch rise with a flat handlebar, and it honestly fit me perfectly. Now, I was pampered. Not a lot of people can bring their sled and get a custom bar set up to them. So thank you to Cheetah Factory Racing for that, because honestly, I think that's what made my sled so easy for me to ride. Anyways, that being said, what you are looking for when it comes to a rise in your handlebars is you want a slight bend in your elbow when you're standing on your snowmobile. When we're sledding, we're standing. We rarely sit. I think the only time I sit on my sled is maybe on the trail, like on the ride out. I'm standing like 98% of the time. So when you're standing, make sure you have a slight bend to your elbow. You want to keep the handlebar around your hips. Everyone's different though. Everyone likes different heights. So you just really have to test this out. The most common riser I have seen women ride is 3-inch and 4-inch. I am going to plug this in. As I said before, I have a ton of resources for you. I have a YouTube video called Take a Tour of My Handlebar Setup, and I really go into depth of every single thing because there's so much to my handlebar setup that I have done to make it fit me perfectly. So please check that out if you want like some more of the pros and cons, because like I said, I really do a deep dive on everything that I have on there. Handlebar setup on any snowmobile is very crucial. Okay, you want to get this step right and set up properly for you, because this is where your driving power comes from. It comes from your upper body, right? So when we're strong in our upper body, it's just easier to maneuver our snow machines. Okay, tip number 3 is handlebar. Okay, there are a ton of different lengths and profiles when it comes to bars. I've tested a few different ones to find the perfect balance for me. Having a narrow bar helps me keep my core tight, and it gives me more leverage when I need it. I like to have my hands in line with my shoulders or just slightly out a little bit. I've rode with handlebars that are 30 inches in width, and I had a hard time getting my sled on edge. And also trying to reach for that throttle or reach for that brake. So having a narrow bar keeps my tiny hands happy. I am currently rocking the Rooster 2.0. So that is a 28-inch width, and it has 0 rise. So that's a Cheetah Factory Racing Rooster 2.0. In case you want to Google that, or I'll maybe put a link in if I remember. I also do want to include grips in this section, because you can't ride without grips. If you replace your bar, you will need to adjust the heat pads. So make sure you're careful with this when you're installing your new bar. I have an older video, surprise, surprise, on how to install handlebars with your grips and heated pads. So go check that out. Again, if you have a newer model snow machine, then the handlebars are pretty good. I feel like the circumference of the bars are comfortable. The width of the bar seems, okay. So if you want to spend money, if you want to invest in something, when it comes to your handlebar setup, I would say the biggest one would be your risers. Don't worry about your handlebar. You can always get that later. I would say test out the risers and get that right. You want to find that riser first. All right, so tip number 4 is brake lever. Now, I don't have an aftermarket brake lever on my current snowmobile. I'm just rocking the Polaris stock brake, as I find it pretty good. I find that the lever is really close to the handlebar, and I ride with, a finger on each lever, however you say it. And so, yeah, I found that I didn't have to swap out my brake lever. However, on my skidoo, I did switch that out, and I got the Skins Protective Gear brake lever, and it was heated. It was so nice, and it was very close to the bar, and I absolutely love that. Something that people overlook is brake levers, and once you advance in your riding, it's a tool that you can use when you are doing your maneuvers, when you're doing your pop-ups, or you're getting your sledge on edge. I use my brake for everything. So you can take a look at that. Again, if you're having troubles reaching for that brake, short lever. Get a brake, sorry, not a short lever. Get a shorter distance brake lever. Because again, you always want to make sure you're riding with one finger on that brake lever. Number 5 is a finger throttle. Okay, I know. There's some of you that love the thumb, and then I know there's some of you that love the finger throttle. And I am partial, I enjoyed the thumb throttle, and I was a snob. To the finger throttle. I tried it. It scared me. I got bucked off on the trail with it, and I swore it off until I decided, you know what, let's give this a test. And I tried my husband's snowmobile, in the backcountry, in the powder, not on the trail, and it blew me away. It blew me away because it was easier to pull. Now, I say that because in my thumb, I felt like I was cramping my thumb muscle a lot. And there were moments where I had to like massage my thumb. My thumb just would get super sore. Now, your finger will get sore if you do switch over to a finger throttle. However, over time, you build up that muscle. You can say that too with the thumb. But if you are, so what helped me was, because I'm a dirt bike rider, I always ride with one finger on the clutch and one finger on the brake. And so instantly, that felt really natural to me. And the pulling felt like once I got used to it, it took like 3 days to get used to the finger. But oh my gosh, all of a sudden my pow carves became so much more aggressive because I was able to give it gas. The thing with sledding is you can't be afraid of giving it gas. You can't be afraid of throttle. And I just felt like switching over to finger throttle kind of gave me that like permission slip to be aggressive because I was able to pull it in. And then also too, there were moments where I was on the thumb throttle and then I would smash into my hand and it would scare me, and my, whiskey throttle, I guess is what you would call it. Also, one of the reasons why I did switch from a thumb to a finger throttle is because I started jumping and dropping cliffs with my sled. And I wanted more grip on my handlebars. If I were to jump with my thumb throttle, which I was trying to do, I was trying to grip, if you can see me on YouTube, I'm making some hand gestures, but if I tried to jump and drop with just holding the bar, just with my 4 fingers like that, there's no strength at all. To hold me, right? Whereas if I had my thumb wrap around that handlebar and I had my finger on the gas, I had way more control if anything were to happen. And trust me, I've gone through some pretty scary moments dropping cliffs, and if I didn't have my finger throttle, I would have flipped right over my snowmobile and landed right in front, and that snowmobile would have crashed into my back and probably, to be honest, broken my back if I wasn't able to hold on to the bars. If that makes sense. Maybe if you're watching on YouTube, I can show you a sequence of what happened, and I am scorpioning. Oh my God. Anyways, I was diving when I did a drop, right? Nose is going down on my snowmobile. And because I didn't give that last wrap off of the lip, the sled started to dive, and it dove so far, nose heavy, and it threw my body. So my legs were bent, my back was bent, and I held for dear life on those handlebars not to let go and not to fall and do a backflip basically in front of my snowmobile. I held through it. It's like I did a handstand throughout the whole entire cliff drop. And if I didn't have that, like I said, I don't know if I would be here today or be walking today. So that's why I really do believe in the finger throttle, is for safety. However, I do want to point out that having a finger throttle can be scary. So the con about the finger throttle is the throttle cable itself can freeze if there's any condensation or if it's raining. If you live in the West Coast, we get that heavy wet snow. And if it freezes, well, then all of a sudden you have that ice buildup in your throttle cable. And sometimes if you turn on your snowmobile, your throttle is then turned on or activated because of the ice, and your sled will just take off. It's scary. It has happened. I've actually been hit by somebody. I tell you, I have so many stories. But I was hit by another lady's snowmobile because of her finger throttle. It hit my sled, and then my sled hit me, and I got backed off, got hit, and I was standing right beside it, and it just hit me and then I went flying back, hit me really hard. So every time, if you do have the finger throttle, before you start the sled, give that pull a few times on the finger throttle lever. Pull it, give it, 3, like, rap, not with the sled on, right? Your sled's not turned on. Just move it around, get that ice out of there, and then turn it on. There's actually a great tip from Ira Nanalina, and she swears by this, and she does this all the time, is she wraps her finger throttle with a plastic bag if she knows that she's staying in the backcountry longer. Like if her snowmobile is going to be sitting outside, she'll like wrap it up. And I've seen her do this, and it's so smart. Sometimes I don't think about those things in the moment, but if your snowmobile, it sits outside and you have the finger throttle, wrap a bag around it, or put your sled cover on, or try to store it inside, like in the shop, or garage, or storage facility. I don't know. Anyways, just try to keep it indoors if you can, if you don't have a sled cover, and that should save on the ice buildup. Again, it can be resolved if you flick your lever back and forth to get that ice out. Okay, so number 6 is the kill switch. So don't look over this, okay? I moved my kill switch. If you look at that video, the tour of my snowmobile handlebar, my kill switch is now placed underneath of my handlebars. And this was to prevent myself from slamming into my handlebars. There's nothing worse when you're driving and then you kind of get bucked around, or sometimes you lean in and then all of a sudden your machine dies, or like it just turns off, right? How many times has that happened to you? It's super dangerous, especially if you start getting into jumping and dropping off of cliffs. You don't want that to ever happen. So I moved my kill switch. It's stock, by the way. I just moved it underneath. That's when I got Cheetah Factory Racing to customize my handlebar for me. So it's very fancy. I love it. What you can do is unbolt your stock and just turn it so it faces away from you. Another thing, before I had my Polaris, on my skidoo, I had the Munster kill switch. And so that was basically just a button, and you had to hold the button down for, I think, 3 seconds, and then it will shut off your snowmobile. Whereas if you just like hit it, like by accident, let's say with your chest, it won't turn off because you didn't hold it for 3 seconds. Again, it's just to save you in the long run. Maybe it's not going to make your riding easier. It's more of a safety precaution. Tip number 7 is your tether. Okay, another point I want to make here is this isn't going to make your riding easier, but this is something that's safe. If you don't know what a tether is, and your snowmobile didn't come with one, then you need to stop what you're doing right now and go to your local dealership and get one, because it is mandatory. You should always have your tether plugged in. It's basically like a key, and you clip it onto your snowsuit. And if you ever get into a sticky situation, and you jump off your sled, well, at least you can pull the tether and your machine will turn off. I believe all sleds now come with one. There was a point where I think it was Polaris that didn't come with a tether, but I believe every snowmobile out there comes with a tether, which is key. Okay, moving on. Now that we passed the handlebar setup, we're moving on to seats. Oh my gosh. Okay. New sleds now come with a lower profile seat. So this isn't too much of an issue, but again, if you're a woman, shorter rider, let's say you're shy of 5 feet, I guarantee you that stock seat that's still a little bit short isn't short enough. Okay. Okay, so I struggled on my 2013 Skidoo, hopping from side to side. This is when I was a beginner rider, learning how to maneuver on my snowmobile, trying to get my weight back and forth, getting that sled on edge, and my feet kept getting hung up on this tall seat. And actually, when I just got into jumps and drops, my coaches would yell at me because they thought I was sitting while I was in the air jumping. And nope, it's just because the seat's right there. It looks like I'm sitting. So it wasn't until 2018 when I had this like eureka or this aha moment of like, oh my God, I can get a seat and this is going to help me significantly. And so I went and switched out to a Skins protective gear. It's their extreme low profile seat. And holy moly, I can't believe how much this changed the game for me. And that's because I was able to hop over side to side so much easier, so much smoother. My reaction time was quicker. And again, it was mind-blowing for me. Okay, but again, that's like back in 2018 when stock seats were massive. I'm glad that they switched that out because that was ridiculous. I don't know, again, how short seats are now, but the extreme low profile seat is like short. There's not much padding in there. And maybe that's why I don't sit very much, because it's not that comfortable. Anyways, moving on. Tip number 9. Love it or hate it, tow hooks. Oh my gosh. Okay, again, like a big game changer for me. So my Polaris Snowmobile comes with tow hooks. And this is a feature that I wish I knew about when I had my skidoo. When I was on my skidoo, not that I don't want to hate on brands here, but because I think you can make sleds work for you, but I think what's important is knowing about these accessories and these products. So I didn't know that tow hooks was a thing. And if you don't know what tow hooks are, so basically they're like these bars where your feet sit on the running boards. And you can hook your toes underneath them and pull with your legs to do your carve, so you're no longer switching or hopping from side to side or transferring weight. Being a woman rider, I have a lot of strength in the booty and the legs. So I am now able to get my sled on edge by using tow hooks. Mind-blowing. So it definitely has, not exerted me. It's like amplified my riding because my stamina went up because I'm not having to hop on one side or the other. Does that make sense? So skidoo, I don't think the newer models have tow hooks. However, you can get aftermarket tow hooks. My husband actually installed his on his skidoo. I don't know what. He has a turbo of some sort. Anyways, he has tow hooks on his, and same thing. He just lifts his toes and he uses his legs, and it's almost like you're like one with the sled. Now, some people don't love them because apparently they're an ankle buster. I've never had that problem before. Mind you, I haven't been sledding as much lately, so the times that I have gone out, like I said, it was a game changer. I absolutely love them. And yeah, you can get the aftermarkets for the tow hooks. You might just have to ask your dealership for some. And I actually wanted to point this out is Caleb, don't know how to pronounce his last name, Caleb. We all know Caleb, the Polaris guy who's always dancing around doing re-entries, bow ties, and like getting in some like crazy situations. Yeah, we know Caleb, right? Okay. So my husband took his clinic when he came out here to Whistler, and he's the one who told the group that took the clinic to get tow hooks because it just makes riding, doing these technical maneuvers so much easier. So why not use the power of your legs to move around? And it just makes sense. I'm sorry, it does. So I have to like tread lightly because I've had a few women actually say quite the opposite of this. So all of the tips that I'm giving you here, take what you want, but also take what you think might work for you. Not everything that I say or that I'm going to talk about is going to work for you, and that's okay. I think that's a beautiful thing. I believe that we need to test and try things to make things work. All right. Okay. Tip number, oh my God, was that number 9? Tow hooks was number 9. Okay, yeah. Number 10 is suspension. I am no expert in suspension, but what I do know is that it plays a huge role when it comes to making your riding easier for you. I run my suspension on the light setting so that it's easier for me to toss the sled around, and I don't switch it back and forth unless the trail ride is like brutal, you know, with all the whoops. Then I'll switch it to the stiffer, no, which one? Oh my God, I'm getting confused. I think I just keep it on light setting. So I just like go with the bumps. Because if I put it on stiff, I think then you really get tossed around like a rag doll, right? Yeah, I think that's how it works. Again, I haven't been sledding very much lately, so I am not remembering. Okay, but I did a quick Google search about suspension, and here are a couple things to consider if you are planning on adjusting your suspension. So the rebound setting controls how quickly the shock extends back to the ride height after it's been compressed. The right setting will allow the skis to follow the contour of the ground without making the sled feel like a pogo stick, which is correct. Preload. The preload should be set for the rider's weight. If the preload is not set correctly, the snowmobile will roll and dive too much in corners. I've never experienced that before, but the next one is snow conditions. The right preload setting depends on the snow conditions. So for example, in dry snow, a stiffer spring might be better, while in wetter snow, a softer preload might be better. And I think that's why I always run a lighter or softer preload, is because of that. It's just easier for me to maneuver. And then I never switch out my suspension. I did the one time, but I can't remember. I think I did it backwards. And it was actually in Sycamoose, and I think that's because it was drier powder. I think that's why. Anyways, moving on. That's suspension, but moving on is skis. So most sleds come with pretty good stock skis, right? However, there are aftermarket skis and products out there that you can invest in to, you know, get better skis that are going to help you maneuver, get your sled on edge, that sort of thing. I don't know too much about this one. However, I did go with a wider aftermarket stock ski or aftermarket ski. I couldn't tell you the brand name. I got it from a pro sledder, and I just know with the wide skis, I just remember feeling grounded, planted, and that sled did not want to get on edge. It was like I was fighting a gorilla, but I thought the skis were like super cool and they were white and just looked good, but no, it really hindered my ability to ride that sled. So it was kind of a joke, to be honest. That being said, you know, do your research if you are thinking of getting aftermarket skis. Different profiles are going to do different things, right? But that's an option for you. Tip number 12 is the track. Okay, so we can talk a little bit about this. I don't want to go too much into depth, but the longer the track, the easier it will be to stay on top of the snow. So basically you're going to float on top and you won't get stuck as much. I shouldn't say you won't get stuck, because you will probably, but you won't get stuck as much. These sleds can climb through anything, and it has a great floatability to them. If you like the idea of getting stuck less, then getting a longer track will help. But keep in mind that it's best to purchase a snowmobile that has that longer track built already, like a 175 inch or a 165 inch, because if you're looking to add length to your current snowmobile, you will need to consider buying a longer track, rail extensions, or a new skid plate, and a tunnel extension. I don't think it's worth doing because I think that can get quite pricey. But if you don't want to get a new sled or another sled and this is your forever sled and you want that longer track, then that's that option. But again, I would say probably just get a new sled and get the track length that you want with that sled. I have experience on the 165 inch and holy moly, that kept me up so much, and that really helped during my learning phase of beginner phase of sledding. So I do think a longer track is great. Now shorter track, well, the harder it is to drive through deep snow, but it is a super playful sled when you have the shorter track. And this is mainly for those that look at playing with their sleds or their performance. So that could be wheelies, bow ties, re-entries, so on and so forth. Having a shorter track is going to help you maneuver or get you to doing those techniques. Whereas a 175 or 165 inch track, it's harder because you have more length to work with. Now, if you are a giant, you can make it work. Anyone can really make it work at whatever track length that you have, but I'm just saying a shorter track is going to make it a lot easier. And we can talk about different lugs. Again, I don't want to go too much into detail because we're already, I think, at an hour. Oh my God. Okay, so you can put, tracks have different lugs. Now, lugs are those little flappy things on the track. I'm sorry, I don't know what else to describe them. They're like, yeah, these plastic nubs to track through the snow like a tractor, right? But you can get different widths of them. I'm just going to talk about this, a 3-inch lug. So that's the part that sticks out on your track, the nubs. So a 3-inch lug is probably the best if you ride in deep snow. Like there's lots of powder, especially in wet snow. The bigger the lug, the easier it is to trench through. The shorter the lug, the harder it's going to be. Mind you, I think you want a shorter lug for more of your trail riding, or if you don't get a lot of the snow like we do in the West Coast. Again, I'm not a trail rider, so don't quote me on that, but that's kind of what makes sense in this old noggin. Anyways, moving on. So tip number 13 is the tunnel. Okay, this is kind of a new concept, or at least it has been for a few years now. Most snowmobiles now come with a shorter tunnel because of the playfulness. However, lots of people do cut their tunnels shorter because it does eliminate that wheelie bar behind the sled. Other people cut tunnels for the benefits of driving through the snow with less drag when they're side hilling. I definitely have experienced that, and I was really excited hearing about, when Polaris came out with their matrix or their slash tunnel. I just thought that was brilliant. Like, how fun. I think having a shorter tunnel is definitely going to help with maneuvers if you want to get into doing more trick performance like re-entries, bow ties, that sort of thing. Now, I don't have a shorter tunnel. The 2021 Khaos is my sled. I have no experience on any other newer sled, and that is one thing that I wish I had with my snowmobile. Maybe I'll cut it. Okay, now number 14. This is my last one. I think this is my last one. Okay, tip number 14 is a snow flap. Okay, this is a flap that sits at the tail end of your snowmobile on the tunnel, and this snow flap helps keep snow or kick snow into your track, and while you're driving that snow cools your machine down, right? It also helps if you're on the trails and you're driving really fast. Well, that snow flap is going to prevent any snow chunks or rocks flying at your buddies that are behind you. Have you ever been behind somebody without a snow flap? Sorry, everyone, because I don't have a snow flap. It sucks. It's not a lot of fun. These snow flaps, they're annoying, okay? I prefer taking my snow flap off because it's much easier to do a lot of things like reverse in the snow. If I'm stuck, sometimes I will, reverse my sled. And then if I have my snow flap, oh my gosh, it gets sucked into my track and it's just a nightmare. Then all of a sudden that's stuck. It just sucks, right? It also sucks when you're trying to do a wheelie and then all of a sudden you have your like snow flap in the track and then you just hear like that flapping. Oh, that's annoying. Anyways, you can get an aftermarket snow flap where it attaches onto your tunnel and then you can take it off and on, which is perfect if you need to drive on the trails to access into the backcountry. Tip number 15 is GGB Exhaust. Okay, have you ever carried your stock exhaust can from your snowmobile? It is extremely heavy. I encourage you to go in there and take it out and feel how heavy it is. It's insane. I couldn't believe the difference between the stock can to the GGB exhaust can that I ended up getting. I got a quiet can, but I think the stock was 40 pounds. Okay. At the time, the stock exhaust felt just as heavy as Billy was at that time. So I was like carrying both of them. So 40 pounds was the stock exhaust can. Okay. And then the GGB exhaust can was 20 pounds. So for me, shedding weight on my snowmobile that's already super heavy and hard for me to maneuver was a no-brainer. And it just made it easier for me to maneuver and toss that snowmobile around. I do believe that an aftermarket exhaust can really make a big difference in handling your sled. So not only will you shed some weight on your snowmobile, but you will also sound cool depending on what type of can you get. I got the quiet can. I don't like an obnoxious can, but there's, some people that likes that sound. So that would be my tip number 15 for you. Number 16 is scratchers. Okay, so most sleds come with scratchers, okay? That's where you put the scratchers, little metal things that hang off the side of your sleds, and it basically is dragging while you're on the trail, again, to kick up that snow into your track to cool your sled down so you don't overheat. While some scratchers can be reversible, and then other scratchers you cannot reverse with them or else they'll snap. So my snowmobile did not come with reversible scratchers. And if you are somebody that forgets to put up scratchers when you get into the zone on where you're going to be playing and riding the POW, and then, if you hit reverse because you got stuck and you're trying to get out of there, well, chances are you're going to snap the scratchers. Is it just me? Am I the only one? Yeah, probably. Anyways, there are scratchers, aftermarket scratchers that you can get that are reversible. So if you do forget to pick up or lift up those scratchers from on the side of your sled, then you know what? That's okay because they're meant to go backwards if you do by accident end up reversing. So that's a great tip if you want to invest in that. And if you're slightly forgetful like I am, it was a habit until it wasn't anymore. Especially if you are, driving up on a sled deck or like reversing on a sled deck and your scratchers are down. Yes, that's where all of mine snapped, I swear to God. Okay, that's where the reversible scratchers would come in handy, is for the sled deck. Okay, number 17, and I promise this is the last one. So sled rep, okay? Not only will this enhance your style, it will give you that boost of confidence knowing how cool and steezy you look on the snow. I know this isn't going to make your snowmobile ride easier, okay? It's a wrap. However, having a wrap on your snowmobile is like a protective agent. It has a thick laminate that goes over top of your design, and it actually protects your snowmobile. But I do want to note, it wasn't until I designed my sled wrap, if you've been following me for a while, I think it was 2016 when I did the pastel pink with the palm leaves over top. It honestly made me so happy. And I think because it made me happy, I was in a positive mindset. I really started to gain confidence and enjoy being a beginner in my learning curve of sledding. I'm going to plug this in. My friend Jessie P, she does customization sled wraps, and she creates designs, whatever you want. She can make it work, make it happen, and create a pretty badass sled wrap for you. So I will leave that link. You can contact her today if you are looking to boost your confidence on the snow, because it honestly did for me. And holy moly, that's it. I covered, I think, almost everything. And at least this is what I've experienced throughout my sledding journey. So my sled journey, I just want to point out, is ongoing. I have had a couple years basically off. Even though I've been on the snowmobile, I haven't been riding in the backcountry. But I do find sledding is a sport where you're constantly learning and you're being tested. It wasn't until I bought my 2021 Polaris Khaos and making all of these adjustments in customizing my sled for me is when I finally felt like I cracked the code and sledding became easier. It's still hard, but I felt like I became one with the sled. I connected with it. But of course, I need to preface this by saying you can spend all the money that you want in modifying your snowmobile, but what it really does take is seat time. You need to put in the seat time, and you need to put in the drills to get into your sledding habits. And these products and accessories, sure, they're going to help, and they are going to make your riding easier. I can guarantee it. But what's going to make it easier is also spending the time on the snow, on your seat, and practicing. All right, well, my camera's gonna die because this was such a long episode, but this was a fun one. I am extremely passionate when it does come to customizing your snowmobiles, dirt bikes, because I believe that it does help enhance your riding and your riding abilities. So I want you guys to take away what you can with this, do what you will with it. Have fun, maybe go hop on some friends' snowmobiles, ask questions, feel the difference, go into your local dealership and ask the experts. If you have a lady crew in your area, maybe get together with them with your snowmobiles and you can all tinker away together. And actually that reminds me of a time back in 2019, we did this like big, wrap install party. I think we had about like 6 snowmobiles, more than that, but we would rotate snowmobiles in and out, and we all worked together as girls in wrapping each other's sleds, and it was honestly like such a fun day, a full day, but it was such a fun day. So before I let you go, I do want to say work smarter, not harder, okay? This sport is already hard enough. So why not spend a little extra time making it easier? All right, before my camera dies, keep killing it safely out there. Be the vibe, and I will catch you next week. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in today's show. Please rate and review this podcast. I would forever be thankful and grateful. Share it with your friends, family, and whoever you feel would enjoy these types of conversations in the dirt bike, snowmobile, and motorsports community. If you are looking to support the show, I do have a few affiliate links in the show notes. And if you're looking for some confidence in the digital space, learning how to brand yourself, edit your epic sends, and just being the vibe, being your true self, your authentic self, shoot me a message. You can reach me over on my website, angelisaedwards.com. And as always, I am rooting for you, and keep killing it safely, and I'll see you next week.